guys, so I'm also going to try a kind of application through the stencil where I'm just going to use a sponge almost like a squeegee, and I've got some, I think that's gouache or acrylic paint right there, and I'm just going to dip the sponge in that and just apply it through those circles, and we're going to see what happens. It's all experimentation, it's all play. So just gentle pressure, not pushing real hard. If you have anything that's too delicate, it probably would get damaged by the sponge doing this. I kind of make sure I have a fair amount of paint on there. Oops. So that it can go down through the gap created by the thickness of that Mylar. That didn't work very well. It kind of smushed everywhere. Wonder if a thicker paint might be better. See what I have. I had added a little bit of water to that last batch. Maybe I'll try it without water. So now maybe have the negative of that. And that might be kind of interesting. Let's try pushing down on the paper. On the stencil, I mean, onto the paper. It didn't transfer very well. Like I said, just playing around, just experiments. Right, so I'm just going to try straight paint. And see if the thicker material is less likely to squish underneath the stencil than the version of it that had water in it. It's a little bit better. Held up better with straight paint. Alright, so that's using a sponge and just pushing paint through a stencil. I would highly recommend, if you do this, that you're doing it with something thick like cardboard, chipboard, or maybe even better, something that's plastic like Mylar or acetate like this geometry tracing thing is. Alright guys, it's time for the final 2 layers with that original stencil I made. So the rest has kind of just been experimentation and trying to create textures and layers to sort of finish the image. I'm going to go back to those stencils that I started with. using the other layers to slime that up really quick. I've got that cheap Walmart spray bottle. I mixed a little bit of green and black into that, figuring that the water and the paper color are going to give me kind of a pastel version of that color. Lay down some paper. Keep that color from going all over the place. Should be pretty faint, pretty light, especially once it dries. So with that sprayed, now you can see why I had to make sure and leave, protect the areas that I'm now spraying green when I was cutting out those color stencils for the background, because otherwise this would be all covered in color and that green probably wouldn't show up very much. And so that takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought, but after this video hopefully you guys can kind of see that. And again, I can let this drip, maybe get some cool textures with that. I'll set that to dry. And then I'll go ahead and time lapse the next couple. So a quick tip, guys, is if you get a little too much watercolor or watered down acrylic on your paper through your stencil, you can always blot the stencil down, but you can also always blot the print down. So you can see how that's kind of more speckled than maybe I want. I can just take a piece of newsprint or paper towel and take some of that off of there, and then I end up with kind of like a light, even tone of green, which is sort of more what I was thinking when I came up with the idea for the print. So I'm almost ready to finish up here, and it just occurred to me that I hadn't shown you guys how to like another potential stencil, which is to actually take something physical. So we got my little pocket knife, got some kid's scissors, weird combination, but that'll work. I can just lay those on a surface and spray around them, and voila. Obviously don't use anything perishable unless you don't care if it survives. And maybe be a little bit more careful than I was about how you place your little extra stencil. I've got a cast in my hands. Let's see what that looks like. Kind of weird. Obviously you could use your hand with gloves, a la the first stencil that we have evidence of is the Caves of La Salle in France, where the caveman put his hand on the cave wall and chewed up charcoal and spit it out so that he created basically a turkey hand like we make every Thanksgiving of his hand on the wall. Alright, so I washed off the scissors and the knife, and let's go ahead and do that final layer for the gas mask. One thing I learned in doing some of the other colors or layers for this is that I might need to gently blot off the stencil. So I do have some paper towels handy. Another trick is if I have anything that I can hold that down with, it's heavy. Because the more contact the stencil actually has, and I'm sorry that's blocking your view. Just don't have anything. Here we go. the closer to actual physical contact the stencil has with the paper or the surface underneath it, the tighter or more control I'm going to have over my image. Alright, so I got my final layer. And voila! Pretty fun, if I do say so myself. Alright, I'm going to set this one out to dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the sort of fast forward through the final 5 so you guys can see that, but you know, you don't have to watch me laboriously set it all up each time.